Most brands think they need an in-house designer to design any decent looking emails. They really don't. You just need a process for finding what works, the right tools to recreate it, and a sense to not try and overcomplicate things. Here's what I did when I was just starting out. I'd find emails I like, work out why they work, and then rebuild them in Figma for the brand I was working on at the time. And I'll walk you through that exact process now. We'll jump into inbox or inbox.ai, find an email worth worth learning from, then we'll recreate it step by step in Figma. So let's find an email. So this is inbox. Never know how to say that, but there you go. Now I know CBDMD have some really cool emails, so let's have a look at theirs. This one looks quite good. This is a great tool, by the way. There are other ones you can use. There's Mild, there is really good emails, but this is just the one I've been using recently and it's really good. It's quite new. That one looks decent. Have a think about that. Oh, this one looks fun. Looks like there's a cool little graphic down there. Yeah, this one could be good to rebuild. It's very simple. It's got 2 call to actions. It's a subscription, promotion, send. Be fun to make this little graphic there. I can show you how to do that. So right, let's dump this into Figma and we'll get going. Okay, so that design is in Figma. So what we need to do first is get some assets together that we're going to use for this email for the brand we're going to do it for, which is a brand called Applied Nutrition. They're a big supplement company in the UK. So this is the Applied Nutrition website. We're going to be doing this one about the collagen range. So I will just gather some of these assets. I'll get the logo, I'll get some of these product photos, and I'll dump them into the Figma file as well. Okay, so I've saved those assets. I've just pulled them from the website and got rid of the backgrounds within Figma, but if you don't have Figma Pro, you can do that in another tool, Canva, or there's plenty of free ones online. So I am going to be copying this hero section with the woman looking at her phone and having one of the products on it. So what I'll do is upload this image into Claude, ask it to reverse engineer me a prompt for Google Nano Banana Pro. I'll then dump my product image in. I'll use this marine collagen one and I'll get it to spit me out something. So I'll just go away and do that now. But obviously for your brand, you should have plenty of assets as well that you can use instead. So there we go, that's the image I got Nano Banana to make for me. I don't think it looks too bad. Slightly strange organisation. I think it looks like she's sitting backwards on a sofa next to a bed, but it will do for the moment. In terms of the copy, I'm just going to use Claude to give me some generic copy. Obviously you'd be using something relevant to your brand. Claude can definitely help with that. But for this purpose, it's a design tutorial, so I won't be fussed too much about what the copy looks like. Right, so we are ready to start building this. So let me just move this across to the side. We'll start with a frame, so we want that to be a width of 600, and then it will probably be a similar height to the last one. Might be a little bit longer because we'll add some buttons in the footer, but don't want to jump ahead too much. Then we want to drag this hero image in there. That looks about right. We can tweak that later if we need to. We'll get we've got a nice gradient here, so we'll copy that, but the Applied Nutrition brand colours are sort of blue and white, so we'll use a white for this. We'll come on to fill, we'll hit white, we'll go linear gradient, add in white to white, and then on the bottom one we will take that transparency or the opacity down to 0. We'll add in the Applied Nutrition logo there, have that at the top. That looks about the right size. Then we'll get the hero copy in there. I will just paste that. Okay, so we've got the copy in there. Now, just to make it look a little bit, I like the way this top line is slightly smaller than the bottom line, gives a bit of emphasis, draws the eye to the main headline. So we will do that here. We'll change the font to Poppins because that is the font from the Applied Nutrition website. And then we'll make this one a little smaller, we'll say 28, and then we'll do this one maybe 65. Okay, the spacing looks a bit off there, so we'll drag this line height down. That looks a bit better, and then we'll pull a nice blue color from one of the product photos. So make sure we've got that right. Color picker, and we'll use sort of maybe that blue. That's starting to come together. I think this needs to be bold. We'll do that. That's looking better. We'll make sure that's centered, yeah. And then I think this gradient needs to come down a little bit further. So what we'll do there is come in here. We'll add in a section on the gradient there, about halfway down, and we'll increase that to, let's say 80%. No, I think 100 actually. So there we go. Maybe move that up slightly. There. We'll add a bit of a drop shadow on that as well, just to make it pop slightly. Do 4, and then we'll come in here, we'll go white. That's a bit harsh, so we'll increase the blur and decrease the opacity of that. There we go. I think that looks a bit better. Then we need to get this button in there. So I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll make it have a slight 3D effect. So what we'll do is we'll get the button in first, and then I'll explain how you do the 3D effect. So we've got the rectangle for the button in there. We will change the color to this blue as well. We can always come back and change this later. We'll add a text box within that. Change the font, we'll have that at 20. And then we want subscribe and save. So there we go, we've got that in there, center that. Actually, I think that can be a bit bigger. We'll go 22. Center that. We'll group these together so they stay connected. And then we'll do the little 3D effect so it looks like it's behind her head. So what we need to do for that is we need to duplicate this image. So now we want to remove the background. You can do this all in Figma, but if you don't have the paid version of Figma, I don't think you get the remove background tool, so you could do that in Canva or something like that. Then we'll come into this side panel, we'll find the group, and we'll drag that down to between the two photos there. So there we go, we've got a nice little 3D effect. I think that looks all right. Let's go, let's carry on. So now we need to focus on the bridge section. So we want to get this nice transition arc thing there. So what we'll do for that is we'll plonk a rectangle in there. Bring it up a bit, let's go that kind of level. And then we want to select the middle, bring that down. We want to make sure that's centralized so that the X position there you can see on the right needs to be 300. And then we'll hit the curve key, bring that in, and then we want to drag this out a bit there. That looks about right to me. Change the color to white. Actually, I think we might go for a blue for this section. That white looks a little bit boring. So we will, actually we could get a nice 3D effect on that, a nice gradient. So what we'll do is we'll flip that sideways. We'll do the dark blue as the first color and as the last color, stay with me. And then we'll add a new one at 50%. And we'll change this to a sort of slightly lighter blue. There. There we go, I like how that looks, but that transition looks a little bit harsh, so I'm going to duplicate this, take the bottom layer, slide that slightly up. We're going to change that to white. So we've got a nice little border at the top going into the bridge section, and actually we'll add a drop shadow just so it looks like it's popping out slightly as well. So for this we want the Y to be -4. That's a bit subtle, let's go -8. That looks better, but a bit harsh again, so we will drag this blur up slightly. There we go. It's very subtle, but it gives it a little bit of something extra, doesn't it? Right, so we've got the background on the bridge section, so we'll get some copy in at the top. Like I said, this will just be generic copy, but you need to put in obviously whatever is relevant for your brand and your campaign. So there we go. I've put that copy in there, added some bolding on the header and to highlight some of the key points, but there's very little copy in this email. We're not going to use this bit. That looks like rich text, and I think that looks slightly ugly. So we're just going to go for some really punchy header copy and some short body copy. Now we need to get an image of a phone so we can build this fun little graphic down there. So I'm going to go into FreePic, and I've just searched image of iPhone on angle, very eloquently put there. I'll have a little look through this. I'll find a good example and I'll come back to Figma. So there we go. I found this one on there. Didn't take me long. This will be perfect. It looks close enough to the other one. So another thing we need to do is we want to get this fun hand grabbing the top. I think we'll use this little collagen sachet for that. So again, I'm going to go into FreePic and use a Nano Banana prompt in there. FreePic's a great tool. It's not a sponsored post at all, but you've got a stock image library, and you can also get access to lots of AI image generation and video generation tools within it. It's not too expensive, so I absolutely live on that platform. So it's worth a try if you haven't used it. So yeah, we've got that. I think that will do. I've just said create an image of a hand and arm coming in from the left-hand side and grabbing the top of this sachet. I've attached a picture of that sachet, and that looks good enough. So I will get that into Figma. There we go, I've plonked that one in there, so we don't need this anymore. So now we need to build this sort of fun graphic of the stuff coming out of the phone. So what we'll do is position everything first, and then we'll sort the mask to get the good sort of cutout effect. So we'll pop him in the middle. If you're watching this thinking, yeah, I could do that, but I really can't be bothered, I get it. This is what we do for e-commerce brands every week. So if you'd rather have someone else manage this while you focus on running your business, there's a link in the description to book a call with me, and we'll see if we can help. Now let's get back to the design. Okay, so I have positioned all those elements in where I sort of want them coming off as if they're coming out of the phone. So now what we need to do is create a mask to cut off this edge of the phone here and make sure it includes all of these ones. So what we need to do is come in here. To make things easier, I'm going to select these images. God, that looks a mess. We're going to hide those. And then we want to create a mask that goes along the edge of the phone screen. So we'll start sort of here. We want to make sure we catch everything in this. We'll come there. We'll go along. We'll go there, and then we'll bring it out here because we need to make sure the sort of hand section gets captured by the mask. That should have outlined everything, I think. So we'll come in there, and then we will put a fill on the mask, get rid of the stroke. We'll open these all up again. So that is covering the top of all of them. Obviously it doesn't matter if the bottom's sticking out because we're going to cut that off anyway. Then we need to drag that vector, which is the mask we just created, below the downloads. We want to group those together. We then want to select them and select the vector. Right click, use as mask, and there you go. That mask is then cut off the edge of those products and they look like they're popping out of the phone, which looks exactly how we want it to. I think they could use a little bit more pop though, so I'm going to add some white drop shadows around these pictures and make them look a bit better. So I'll come into the mask, I will I'll select all of those images. We'll then come to effects, we'll put a 4 and a 4, and then we will change that to white, drag the blur up a bit, and that looks a bit big. Well, maybe we'll go 2 and 2. Yeah, that looks a bit better. And then we're going to do another drop shadow. We're going to do -2 and -2. Increase the blur slightly and also make that white. That looks a bit harsh, doesn't it? Let's increase it. Oh, Jesus. Let's reduce the opacity of the white. There we go, 25, and we'll do that on the other one as well. 25. Yeah, that looks a bit better. Just gives it a little bit of something else. I think it looked a bit flat before. So we need to make sure we have another call to action at the bottom of this section. So we'll copy. See, the annoying thing about doing this depth effect is if you click on it, you end up just selecting that top layer. So we want to click the group, copy that, click the frame, paste that. That then comes on top. We can come down and we'll plonk it there. Make sure it's central. I think that probably needs a bit of a border on it. So we'll do that, have a nice little white border. Maybe make the weight 2. Yeah, that will do. And then what we want to do, this email doesn't have any footer buttons, but they are so crucial to have, just because if someone scrolls to the bottom of the email, they are interested in your brand, but they haven't maybe been gripped by the content of the email, but they maybe want to read more. You can have some useful links in the footer section, so you give them something to do and you don't completely lose them if the subject matter of the email wasn't especially interesting to them. So we want to do this curved border again. So we're going to grab this, going to drag that down so we've got some room to play with. And then we're going to duplicate this, make sure it's the rectangle we've selected. We're going to duplicate that, drag this down to about there. Let's see how that looks. Then change the fill to white, drag that up. There we go. I think that looks about right. Maybe bring it down a little bit. There. Yep, I think that looks right. And then we'll add some footer buttons in. So we want to make this a little bit shorter, but if you just drag the rectangle, then you flatten the curve there, which obviously then makes it not match the one above it. So if you double click and it comes up like this and you get the end points, then you can slide it up like that without affecting the curve at the top. And then we will select the frame, drag the frame up to there to match. And then let's put some buttons in there. So we'll get in fact, we'll use this as a guideline. We'll paste that in there, drag that down. We want that to be wider, I think. There, we'll center that. Duplicate this. Duplicate again. And duplicate again. So there we go, we've got the buttons all sorted. Let's make sure they're all spaced evenly. So 21, just look here to select multiple items and you can see the spacing between them. So select them all with 21, 21, 21 and then mixed. So let's change them all to 21, just make sure it's all even. You can play, you can drag this around. Obviously we're not going to do that. Oh, I think that looks about right. So then we can group these together. You can either right click and group selection, or you can hit Command G. That will group everything. We'll have that at the top, and then we'll pull in some options from the Applied Nutrition website just to have as those footer options. So I'll go and do that now. So there we go. We've got some footer buttons in there. We've got shop all, because obviously this is a sort of collagen focused message. So obviously if they want to shop something else, not collagen, they've got a button, they can do that. Got a link to our story, and we've got a link to the blog section, and we've got a link to the contact page. So all we need to do now is trim the bottom of this, drag that up. Obviously you could add in any social icons or whatever you wanted to at the bottom, or if you've got a standard footer section with the unsubscribe link and everything like that, but we won't bother adding that in this design. That can all be done in Klaviyo or Omnisend or whatever platform you use. So there we go. I don't think that looks too bad. You've got a clear headline and a button at the top. We've got the same hero section, which I think is really effective with the woman browsing on her phone. Got a little piece of subheader in the bridge section, another little piece of body copy. We've got this fun graphic that we've made, another call to action down there, and some buttons in the footer. Obviously this email is very, very light on copy. I wouldn't suggest doing this every single time. It's good to vary the lengths of copy between your emails, but for this one, it's very punchy, it's very action focused, so getting away with this little copy is absolutely fine. The key thing to remember is you're not copying the email exactly. You're just learning the structure, learning the flow, and applying those to your own brand. Once you've done this a few times, you'll start to get an idea of what works and what works for your brand. You'll then have a library of designs you can work through, so you're not starting from zero every time. If you found this useful, please like the video and consider subscribing. I put out new videos like this every week. And like I mentioned earlier, if you want someone to handle all this for you so you don't have to worry about it, there's a link in the description. Cheers.